Thank you all for being here today. We're very excited now that summer is sort of winding down and people are getting back into the swing of things. We're really excited to get this chamber exclusive series started up again. So some really fun conversations, interesting glimpses into some of the leaders in our community and the organizations that they're a part of. And so today we're going to start things off with Donnalee Lozeau. So thank you for being here this morning. We're very happy to have you. We had a great conversation last week. I think we kind of connected initially a number of years ago. I was at Stay Work Play and asked you to judge for their big awards competition. It was kind of fun.
You did.
It was nice to catch up with you last week, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say this morning. So I will turn things over to you.
Thank you, Kate. Well, you never know when you're talking about yourself how much information people have heard before or not. So I guess you asked me to tell folks a little bit about myself. So I'll tell you that I'm a third generation Nashua native. I'm a wife of this year will be 38 years, a mom, 3 kids, 3 grandchildren, a couple of granddogs as well. And I consider myself a public servant. I ran for office for the first time when I was 24 years old. I got elected to the New Hampshire House in 1984, served there for 8 terms, 16 years. Finished up my time there the last 4 years serving as the deputy speaker to Speaker Donna Lozeau. The legislature was just one of the most amazing learning experiences I've ever had. Also, during that time, my husband and I were business owners. We owned several restaurants in the Nashua area. Well, not the Nashua area, actually in Nashua. I ran for mayor in 2007 and began serving as mayor in 2008. Served 2 terms there, 8 years. And came back to Southern New Hampshire Services. I had worked here since 1993, serving as their community program development person, helping primarily in the Nashua area and then into Hillsborough County. Southern New Hampshire Services is a community action program that's been serving our community since 1965. There's actually 5 of them in New Hampshire, so we have 4 sister agencies. Our agency serves Hillsborough and Rockingham County. When I was here prior, we served only Hillsborough County. When I announced I wasn't going to run for mayor again and got a call from Southern, I had thought that they were going to ask me to come back and serve in the capacity I had before. But the executive director said to me, I'm 77, I think I'd like to retire. So it was a wonderful opportunity to come in and serve as executive director here. It's, sometimes life goes full circle. I actually graduated from the first Head Start program that this agency, Nashua, in 1965. So I guess that tells you how old I am. I actually turned 60 yesterday, was my birthday. One could say I've been at Community Action since 1965. So let me tell you just a little bit more about Community Action and what they do. They were created through federal legislation in the Johnson administration, whose goal was to help people of low income. It was actually the first time that the term "a war on something" was coined for the war on poverty. There are folks that say, well, we have not succeeded in that war on poverty. I would say we've actually succeeded in many ways with all of the battles along the way. We're in the 21st century of community action. We focus on trying to help families succeed, break generational poverty, be able to be in the driver's seat in the future. It is difficult. I tell people, when I was a young kid growing up in Nashua and we didn't have a lot of the things that other families had. I grew up on French Hill. And so that abuts Concord Street where there's some, more wealthier families, let's just say. And when I was a kid growing up, I really didn't feel as though we were poor or we had less than others. Never occurred to me that couldn't do anything I wanted to do if I worked hard enough. That's how our parents install that in us, I guess, or instilled is the right word. Today, though, what I worry about is I think our families, there's so much exposure to the world in a very different way. And I think so many of them don't believe that opportunity means them, that it doesn't matter how hard they work, that they, may not ever get past where they are or get to where they'd like to go. And that concerns me more than anything, because opportunity does mean everybody. And we have to find a way for them to believe and to have hope that they can do that. And so we work really diligently with families to try to get there. We do a community needs assessment every 3 years, which helps to drive our work. That community needs assessment is not only to leaders in the communities we serve, but also to the people we serve. Another very unique thing about community action is our board of directors, by federal law, is made up of a third of those that we serve, a third of public officials, and the remaining members on the board from the private sector. So we have a really nice mix of voices that we can hear from, and many perspectives that inform our work. And given that, one of the things that we've done in Head Start since its inception was worked with the whole family, which was called then, and sometimes still now, a 2-gen approach to how you help families. The terminology has really changed to be whole family approach. And we had been working on our efforts to succeed with that across the agency, not just within Head Start. And we're part of the New Hampshire chapter of Whole Families, which Parents Working, Children Thriving. And we were, it's actually an initiative through the Administration for Children and Families and the National Council of State Legislators, the Governors Association, and all 50 states have chapters. And so in New Hampshire, we've really been gearing up for that work. The state has really led the way, and we've been grateful to be a partner in those efforts and in our work. And, I looked back at the annual report from 2019, Kate, when you asked me to think about where we were going this year and, when COVID hit, what were the changes? And so I looked back at the letter that I had written, and I was talking so excitedly about the whole family approach and what we were going to do and how we were changing job descriptions here and how we were, partnering with other agencies and our meetings. And we actually held a conference with the families that we serve and had, over 50 families come and spend 2 days with us in Portsmouth to talk about the whole family approach and how we could make changes moving forward and what they would like to see and what they thought they could benefit from. And then here we are, January, moving in that direction. And, 3 months into the year, the world is a very different place. Here at Southern, we have over 60 programs where we serve folks. We have workforce programs, financial capability, child development, which is childcare, Head Start, and a program called Child Care Aware, which is a very significant resource and referral for the whole state that also focuses on training and professional development for people. We run health, food, and nutrition programs, energy assistance programs, weatherization. We have over 900 units of elderly housing. We run a retired senior volunteer program. We have 10 resource centers throughout Hillsborough and Rockingham County, 17 child development centers. And so imagine, all that being open for business, everybody kind of excited, as I said, of this change of, not going program by program, because what's typical, and you see it in government as well as, agencies, even companies, that you get siloed into that program you work for. You tell somebody, oh, we're Southern New Hampshire Services, the Community Action Partnership. And they go, oh, I don't know that I've heard of that. And then you say something like, well, did you have fuel assistance this year? Oh, yes. Well, that's Southern New Hampshire Services. Oh, my child goes to Head Start. Well, that's Southern New Hampshire Services. Even in the communities we serve with elected officials, they'll think of us by program name not agency name. But anyway, so we're all geared up, we're doing these sorts of things, and we're very, customer facing. They come in, they meet with us, we walk through, but every program has its own intake system. So if you came in, if you're a pregnant woman and you were coming in for services, prenatal services, maybe with another young child under age 5, and you were getting nutrition services, and we determined that, you might be qualified for Head Start. Well, then you'd go through the Head Start intake. And then if you're in Head Start and we learn that, oh, you know what, you might qualify for our energy program, then you go through the energy intake. Because each program, has federal or state dollars in it and requires specific compliance and applications. So one of the things that we've been working on with the whole family approach is a single intake, that you would come in, you'd meet with a family resource specialist, they would determine your needs. And if we believe that we could help you in more than 1 or 2 programs, you would stick with that family resource specialist throughout your time at Southern. So come March, the world changed as we know it. And we learned very quickly that we were going to have to look at shutting down, not serving people in the same way. And so, we have 450 employees across the 2 counties. And so we really had to quickly figure out, how do we continue to be the helping agency? I said to the staff, we're the helpers. We can't close. People need us. When New Hampshire had, terrible floods back, in the day, it was community action that, stepped up and helped those families. So you can't say, well, it's a pandemic and it's a contagion, so now we're going to close. You have to say, okay, how do we serve people safely? How do we protect our customers as well as our staff? And of course, our staff and our customers have families at home, so you have to take all those things into consideration. So I'm grateful because actually in my last job, I learned a fair amount about emergency management through Justin Cates, who is the city's emergency management director. And so in my head, I could hear business continuity. What do you do in a crisis? What are the critical services that still need to be delivered? And I was grateful that we had changed things here to go into fiber optics so that we could, our phone systems, all those sorts of things were connected in a way that they hadn't been before. So that helped us kind of with a platform of, where to begin. We tried to do a quick analysis about the staff that could work from home and still deliver their services. Then you start thinking, okay, but if they use their own phone, and clients are calling them back on their personal phone, well, that's not fair. So how do you manage that? So we had to, quickly figure out, how to get everybody phones that clients could call on so that we could be quickly responsive. We didn't want to close our childcare centers. So what we did was we moved to a model of we were serving only those parents that were working or were in job training when COVID hit. Essential workers, which a lot of people think, well, that's medical, police, fire, but it's also the people in the grocery stores, the people in the pharmacies, the people, that are, in all those businesses that kept us safe during this pandemic, whether it's, Eversource, Liberty Utilities. I mean, those are folks that are out there doing work. So we quickly tried to figure out how to do that. So we closed down many of our centers. We worked with other groups like the YMCA about opening up childcare for older kids, for essential workers, any ways that we could partner, or families, because we serve younger children. So what about families that might have children here, but they have older children that are in school that are now not going to be in school. So all of those things really had just a significant impact on decisions that we made. As of right now, we're still not seeing clients and customers in our offices. The staff is all working. Most people are, back on site unless there's a reason that they can't be. We haven't made a final decision yet about when we'll bring clients back in. It really is how things unfold and watching what's happening in the school districts and, what happens when school opens and it doesn't open and that sort of thing. I'm very lucky because I serve on other boards and committees, and so I get to see and learn from all of those experiences as well. Like, I serve on the Plus Company board, and you watch, what they've had to do, with clients that have developmental disabilities that still need to be served, and residential, services that they provide. I serve on the board for St. Mary's Bank. Believe it or not, the banks still have to figure out how to operate so all of us can still have access to our money, or to business loans, or PPE when all of those things started happening. I serve on the St. Joe's Hospital board, so seeing up close and personal the challenges they were dealing with there. And one of the, I think, best things about New Hampshire is we work really well together. We partner well together. We do our best not to duplicate services. We learn from each other. Because of work that we've done in the past, it's a quick call to folks to talk about what would you do here? How could we help there? I had a group of staff that were making cloth face masks right from the, get-go. And then they, you ran out of the elastic for the earpieces. And, we had some really creative staff that, used headbands, that people would, women and girls would use, stretchy fabric that they made it work. We tried to help the hospital, make things for them. So it was really, I think, a collective effort that always in New Hampshire makes us, stronger. When all of it started and the CARES Act money came in, I was honored to be asked by the governor to serve on one of the Gopher committees, the Stakeholder Advisory Board. Again, wonderful learning opportunity and an opportunity to help with what I've learned over the years with people in figuring out, where should those dollars be focused? What should the priority areas be? And that, I have to be honest, it was a bit of a heavy lift, but it certainly was something that I think was very valuable to people to understand, to go through the process. People that aren't accustomed to asking for help weren't certain, where to go, who to ask, did it mean them? How easy was it going to be to get the funding? So all of those things, played out. And the partner group to the Stakeholder Advisory Board for Gopher was the Legislative Advisory Board, which was also, set up by the governor to look at kind of the policy perspectives of, what do we do with this money? How do we get it out? How do we be in compliance? Then of course, that you worry about people that are going to potentially lose their housing, not have the funds to pay their rent. What happens there? And community action in New Hampshire, because we work in that field already, in the housing field, and serve people, at risk of being homeless or being evicted, those sorts of things. We were tapped statewide to run the housing relief program. $35 million that have been set aside to try to help statewide people with, one-time assistance for mortgages and people with assistance for rent. Getting that stood up in a way that was easy for people to have access, and an application that met the federal requirements for compliance, kept the state, in compliance, as well as getting the money out the door for people was not an easy thing to do right away. And we started trying to make the application as comprehensive as possible, so we might be able to help them in other areas, not only utilities, which could be paid for through this housing relief program, but other programs that the agency might have, because we were worried people would self-select out, oh, I'm not eligible, I can't, and so we wanted to. And then it turned out that application became really difficult for people to do quickly. And so we unveiled a streamlined application, again, working in wonderful partnership with the state and other entities, the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, New Hampshire Legal Aid, getting input from everybody to try to, redo it in a way that gave people an opportunity to get in, get it done, have others help them, that sort of thing. So we've been, on the front lines working that program as well. One of the things that we had to do was make sure that every one of our resource centers had drop boxes. for people that needed to drop off paper applications because, we serve people, every age. And not everybody is great on the computer or filling out documents on the computer or uploading things or, having those things available. So, one of the first things we did in the first couple of weeks was get out there and put drop boxes at all of our locations, big enough for large envelopes. And then, of course, our staff could get those and then process them. And, in the middle of all this, we have to get out our 15,000 applications for fuel assistance. Again, that's a big mailing, but then people using a different mode to how to get it back. And so it's been a challenge. We've learned a great deal. A few of the things that we are going to do is we've looked at all of our job descriptions so that we could put in language around people that have a job that is able to work from home and what might those tools be. For people that have a job that could work from home, as we replace their equipment, we've determined no more desktops. We will have laptops for any position that's, able to work from home if asked. The same with, cell phones that we have to make sure are at the ready. We are looking at right now, we're putting in a tiered system, red, yellow, and green, so that once we open, should something happen again, that, we can just, announce what color it is and everybody knows what that means to them and their job. All of the documents that we put in place to inform our elderly residents. We put a program in with our retired senior volunteers because they weren't going to be able to see each other and be out in the public doing the things that they do, like the Chamber of Commerce back to school event where they stuff the bags and things like that. They love that camaraderie. We set it up so that they became our voice to all of our elderly residents, well over 1,000 that now could get a call from one of our volunteers to check in on them and did they need anything and how is that doing? And that's something that we certainly want to keep in place. Our website, we're in the middle of revamping that because some of our other work includes, as part of the whole family approach, the governor and the legislature passed House Bill 4, which included language around the cliff effect for people that we serve that are in a job that can't take a raise or a promotion because based on that they'd lose other benefits that they need in order to keep their family safe. And so we are going to host that calculator that's being developed. So all that work is still happening. Timeline changed a little bit. But so as a result of that, one of the things we're trying to do is make our website more user-friendly. So we're going to continue those efforts, and we hope that will help if this comes back again. So I think I've given you kind of a big snapshot. So happy to answer any questions you or others may have.
Thank you. Yes, and don't forget, everybody, there is chat. So if you have a question for Donnalee, please put it in there. Before we move any further, happy birthday.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful day.
Yeah, I was going to say, hope you did something fun or out of the ordinary.
We did. We got to ride up the coast in a convertible Mustang for the day. It was a perfect day yesterday to do that. Thank you.
That's great. So it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast this morning from Rachel Hollis, who's sort of now a national, kind of motivational speaker. I think she owns like a marketing publicity kind of firm. But she was talking about for people who feel stuck, but the sentiment that stuck with me was that like there's been lots of talk of I can't wait till 2020 is over. 2020 has been so hard, and so as I was listening to you talk about all these plans you're putting into place, her point this morning was it's not like when we flip the calendar to January 1st, life is going to go back to what it was before. And so it was sort of this very intense message to people who were listening on the podcast of like, this is your life, right? This is what our life looks like now. And so, no, it won't look like this forever, but it's not, there's not this switch we're going to flip. And so as much as I'm sure it's challenging to put together new procedures and new ways of doing things. I mean, we've been doing this since March, right? This is not sort of a temporary for the next couple of weeks kind of thing. And so, it sounds like you're putting together plans that could come in if we had a big snowstorm or any sort of thing down the road?
Anything. I think a lot of times when people think about emergency management, I think they think about Mother Nature. They don't think about, um, what else emergency management, what other emergency could come that would affect us in a way that we don't anticipate. I mean, one of the reasons that we even looked at having an emergency management director in Nashua was based on things that I learned at a mayor's conference that related to a nuclear power plant, and how that played out, and knowing where our nuclear power plant in New Hampshire is, and the fact that Nash was a valley. It was like, okay, so if something happens, are we ready? And not that anybody wasn't doing a good job of emergency management, but you can't do your fire job full time and wear an emergency management hat, or your police hat, and wear an. So that's one of the reasons that we looked at it. But if you really look back at some of the things that happened in the past, I mean, it was the George W. Bush administration that first looked at things like a virus, and coronavirus was actually on that list about things that could potentially happen. And because of that, I think the federal government started putting things in place. But I think for most of us in our day-to-day life, you think about the flu maybe, or but I don't think you think of something that could shut the world down in a way that nobody anticipated. So whether people call it the new normal or flipping the calendar the way you've described, I think all of us, starting at home, right, being prepared with your family. I mean, my family birthday dinner last night was very different than it would have been a year ago, right? But I think all of us need to think about that in a different way, and understand, what should we do to prepare in our homes?
Mm-hmm.
What should we do to prepare in our workplace? And what can our workplace do to support us in ways that are reasonable, where we can still deliver, services? I like to tell people that, there's no faster way to figure out if your boat has a hole than throw it in a storm. Right? Some people run for the lifeboats to help others. Some people run for the lifeboats to get in. And some people understand that next time you build a better boat.
Right.
So those are the things that I think, we all have to look at, and figure out for the future.
Yep, for sure. So we have something from one of our attendees. So happy birthday again. Amazing work by you and your Southern New Hampshire Services team. Has the funding for CAP agencies been reduced, and how much fundraising they must do?
Well, thank you for the question. I mean, actually, we're one of the community action agencies that fortunately doesn't have to do a lot of fundraising. We really pretty much don't do any. We, 95% probably easily are federal or state dollars, so we deliver the programs. For our discretionary money, we have what's called community services block grant money, which is similar to the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, but it allows us to focus in on initiatives in different communities based on what that community needs. So we're very fortunate that way. Our funding did not decline. As a matter of fact, under the CARES Act, we received additional funding for some of the work that we were doing. Other community action agencies, sister agencies, have not been quite so fortunate. We had one that was in the middle of a capital campaign for their new building and offices in Stratford County. So they had to change that up. Their annual meeting is usually a big fundraiser. They had to change it up. Tri-County CAP in the North Country, they had some challenges. But, knock on wood, we've been able to maintain the same level of services, if not some additional services under the current circumstances. So we're very grateful and relieved.
Excellent. Thank you for that. All right. So with the potential fire danger levels in New Hampshire, are we prepared to deal with the possibility of a situation like the wildfires in California? There's so many eventualities that could affect the people of Nashua.
Well, especially if the news today was saying that we had a haze yesterday from the smoke from, the terrible wildfires out on the West Coast. I think New Hampshire has an emergency management office on the state level. And I think that they have done a significant amount of work trying to be prepared. They stepped up during COVID. I think like most of us, they would have been prepared better for a natural disaster than for, a virus such as this. But I think between our fire departments, our professional ones and our volunteer ones, and communities that are making plans for emergency management, including flood, fire, road collapse, power outages, I think we've come a very, very long way. I know, having been in the emergency management room at Eversource, that they, much like the Nashua Emergency Operations Center, it's very different now how they can determine where power is out and where they can do things. But I don't think anybody can be too prepared, but I'm confident that we're better prepared now than we were.
Yep, that makes sense. So switching gears a little bit. So over the years, right, you talked about a lot of different roles that you've held, and I'm sure, when you stepped into them, it was brand new worlds. And so who have you looked up to? Who have been some of your local mentors? Like who have been those people for you through all these different roles?
Well, I've had a fair amount of different jobs until I was an adult. I started at Dunkin' Donuts on Canal Street, back when it was okay to work at 11 for a few hours a week. I was a waitress, a bartender, a chambermaid. And frankly, I have to say, all of those jobs really prepared me well for public service. You know what I mean? Because you're very customer focused. So I think I have to say that the people that have had the biggest impact on my life are people that have seen things in me that sometimes I've not seen in myself. And that's the kind of person I try to be with others. Because sometimes you see that somebody has a skill set that they may push to the side, or, I still remember my high school yearbook still has a note in it from an English teacher because I had to take a makeup English class. Because let's just say sometimes you get distracted in high school. We'll go with that. And in my yearbook, he wrote, "May you never be someplace that you don't belong again." Because he made it very clear to me that I was doing nothing but wasting my time. And that had I just paid attention, I would not be in a makeup class. And then, after him, of course, my parents were always, big supporters of you can do anything you want. But my husband is probably the most remarkable person in my life that, really will see a little something and push me toward it. You can do that. You go ahead. You try that. We met when I was working for him as a waitress and then a bartender. And we were fast friends, and, I got to be the dining room manager, and that, along the way, I would have other things. When I ran for the legislature at 24 years old, I ran because Donna Sitek, who became probably my, mentor in the political world, me. And I said, "Oh, I hate politicians. They always tell you what you want to hear and not what you need to know. And I don't want to be like that." One day she called me and said, "It's nice to talk about that, but real change happens from the inside." And so, I ran for the State House because my husband thought, "You can do that. We'll find time. You make it work." And I did. And each step along the way, I learned just amazing lessons from people in the legislature, and Donna in particular. And, it was such an honor when she asked me to serve as her deputy speaker, which I really liked because it's not a political position, so to speak. It's more of you're serving the whole house. It's about the process and the institution. And that was really, really wonderful. So I try to be the person that brings out the best in others, and I try to surround myself with the people that bring out the best in me, and I've been really, really blessed. And the lessons aren't always from the good that you do. Mistakes are valuable lessons as well, if you learn from them.
For sure. Well, it sounds like your English class, right? Like I'm sure there was there.
Although don't test me on grammar.
Well, So along those lines, one of the things I found most fascinating through all these conversations that we've had with folks is, what have you learned about yourself through this, right? About whether personally or professionally, right? I mean, there's been some great shifts for all of us. And so what have you learned about yourself as a person that maybe you didn't know before?
Oh, I don't know. I guess the virus is unprecedented, but my time as mayor wasn't easy either, or the legislature. I mean, the Claremont school funding issue in the legislature, I thought was going to be one of the worst things that I ever had to participate in and play a significant role in, and then the city has, 300-year floods and an ice storm and in a period of, a year or whatever the case may be. And then, you know, um, Penachuk, I thought, well, that'll be the hardest thing we ever look at, private company, public purchase, you know what I mean? And that team, came together and did, great work. And then in this job, I thought, wow, this is going to be great. This is all the happy job, helping people and making good things happen. And then boom, well, first I went through the, the legacy leaders here at the agency, the executive director, the deputy director, the CFO, the COO, all left in the same span of, 2.5 years. And so bringing that team on. So I so far, I think most of the lessons I've learned are through all those experiences, that you dig deep for your inner strength. You shouldn't be afraid to say, I don't know how to do this. And always look towards bringing a team together that bring different skills to the table, because that's really the only way that you can accomplish things. And whatever you do, don't surround yourself with the people that tell you that you're brilliant and you're right all the time. Surround yourself with the people that you can trust and that have the courage to tell you that there's a better way, or you're not thinking about this, or what if we did that. And I think those are lessons that have served me well in this job. I think your life, I forget who told me this, but I really appreciated it. Your life is in thirds. Your first third is kind of figuring out who you are, right? You're a kid, you're a teenager, you get more trouble or less trouble depending on who you are, right? And then the middle third is, you're a wife, you're a mom, you're figuring all that out and worrying about getting all that squared away. And the last third of your life is, okay, tick-tock, now what do you want to do? Now what do you want to be? It can be different than what you've done before. And I think that's something that's kind of foremost in my mind right now, particularly after my birthday. So,
Yep.
I mean, I don't know that really was profound enough to answer what I've learned today, but I think it's just been a collection of things.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So you talked about not doing much fundraising, but if people want to help, right? So if folks who have been here today or folks who watch the recording later on YouTube, like if there are ways that they say, oh, is there something I can do as a person? Are there ways that individuals can help the work that you're doing?
Oh, sure. We always look for volunteers in our retired senior volunteer program, and even packing food boxes for folks. As far as donations go, as I mentioned, so much of our money comes from the federal government or the state government that there's not a lot of leeway to do discretionary things. It's very limited. So we accept donations through our retired senior volunteer program. We accept donations through our child care programs. Sometimes those dollars help us buy clothing for kids that may not have what they need to come to school, warm socks in their boots, or boots, instead of sneakers. So we accept things like that. We also look for people, I call it the rocking babies volunteers. A lot of our centers where we serve infants, it's a wonderful thing to come in and, hold a baby and help out that way. So yeah, there's lots of ways. And our website is, full of, information about the things that we do and the way people can help. I mean, even fuel assistance. There's not a lot of money when somebody tells us that their hot water's not on. There's not a lot of money to say, okay, we can fix that pipe, or or somebody needs a hotel overnight. Not a lot of that. So those are ways people can help.
Yeah, that's great. So if anyone has any final questions, but I'm a foodie, so I'm very curious. You said you owned restaurants and all of that. So what are your favorite dishes? Do you cook at home?
Oh, well, I do love to cook. Of course, I'm married to a chef, so sometimes there's a little friendly competition on different things and testing our children on whose meatloaf might be better or that sort of thing. But no, I have very eclectic tastes in food, and I love to cook for others. I mean, my perfect Sunday is home with westerns on the TV and cooking up something wonderful for a family dinner on a Sunday. Um, we had a couple of different kinds of restaurants. Our last one was a diner next door to City Hall. That was a little easier to do breakfast and lunch and not 3 meals and banquets and all that stuff. Um, but speaking of food, I have to say we were so thrilled this year to be able to do our summer food program for children differently. We've done it for, I don't know, 30, 40 years. And this year we served over 35,000 kids breakfast and lunch in Nashua. And it was so rewarding for the staff to see families be able to come up and get a couple of meals and know that they were going to have what they needed for 7 days instead of 5, or that sort of thing. And Nashua did a great job pulling together a collaborative of schools and volunteers and food entities that handed it out along with the food that we send off to our elderly. But one of the things I would love to be able to do, talking about food and recipes, is we're trying to begin to look at food differently and be able to prepare a meal for a family instead of just the things to make the meal, to prepare it, to put the recipe in, and then the next visit to give them the ingredients to make it themselves as we do some of this work. And so we're engaging our staff and what that might look like and what some favorite family recipes might be. I think that's something new that we're going to do. Speaking of food, I might get a little advice from this guy I know at home.
Well, and it's a great way. I feel like food, brings people together. And I mean, I was thinking about it the other day about, plenty of people sort of don't know how to cook, but I was reflecting on, learning how to cook through my dad's not, he's sort of a guy cook, right? And so sloppy joes and rotisserie chicken, right? Those kinds of things. But I was just thinking about like a lot of my memories as a kid with him revolve around making food together. And so I'm sure it's a nice component for you to sort of take what is kind of a personal passion and incorporate it into your work to the benefit of these families to help them, especially now when you think about, what activities can people do together, especially as they're spending lots and lots of time together. It seems
Right.
like that, serves multiple purposes.
Right, and we had to change up some of what we do with food here. We oversee the USDA food program for child care centers statewide, where they serve, some of the commodities from the USDA. And we've always served our meals in our child care family style, so that children are sitting at the table with a teacher and, they're having conversation and they're doing that sort of thing. And it was really devastating when we had to change that because around um, food. So, we look forward to getting back to some of that too. To this day, I don't go to my parents' house without my father or my mother showing off some new something that they made. Last week at my dad's, it was brand spanking fresh popovers, and that's one of my husband's specialties too. So there was a little competition there too about, well, these as good as David's, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, there's nothing like breaking bread together.
Yeah, for sure.
And in these times, it's a special challenge in a restaurant or at home.
Yep, for sure. Well, thank you so much. This was so lovely, both to get to know more about you. It's my favorite is the you as a person part, which is why I threw in a couple of those, more personal questions, but to hear more about the organization. There's so many of those kind of best kept secret organizations in New Hampshire that people either see the fruits of their work and don't know who's responsible, or sort of know of them, but maybe not the full extent of all that they do. So this was a really great opportunity for that. So we appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate the opportunity to tell you more about what we do here too.
Yes. Awesome. And thank you
Thank you.
all for joining us. We will have another chamber exclusive next Tuesday with Joe Purington from Eversource. So a little bit on the energy front. I know they came up in your conversation, and certainly, right, a whole new world. And as we enter into winter, right, I'm sure they have lots of preparations going on. So we'll hear from Joe next week. We hope you'll join us and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all again. Goodbye.
Thank you.